Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today's lesson is on this adorable little bird. He almost looks like a baby bird too. So you can make it a baby bird if you wanted, or you can make it a mother bird that has babies with her. And I did this with second grade, and I had the kids use their imagination, and they come up with all kinds of things in their backgrounds that they could put next to their bird. This is one student example here, and they added little nests and some beautiful flowers at the bottom and their baby bird that just came out of the shell. So it's wonderful, all the little things that you can add to make this painting yours and unique and original. And that's what I want to do. I'm going to help you make the structure of the bird and the body and its legs. I'm going to teach you how to do the process, but then you're going to make it your own with your own creative ideas like this student did here. But let's get started. It's a very simple, basic bird shape. Basically, kids for all ages could do this. The first step we're going to do, here's the base, and I like to do about this much in one class and then let it dry, and then the kids can add more to it on another class. But if you'd like to continue just working right on top of yours, if you're at home, that's fine. But this is probably as far as you'll get one day if you're in a school situation. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to be making the head, and then we'll be making the body. And I like to use the wider flat brushes if we're going to be, because we're going to be painting with a bigger area. So we use a bigger brush for the body of the bird, and then of course the details, look at the difference. We use a smaller brush. This is a flat brush. This is a round brush because this is rounded and this tube has been crimped and flattened. So they call it a flat, and all the hairs lay flat. And whereas the hairs on this brush are round. So we're going to start with a flat brush first for the base, for the back, for the base of the bird. And I start right up at the top of my page, and I take my paint color, say I want to do a blue bird here. I take my paint color and I go and place a dot right under my finger. So my finger is a guideline. I put it at the edge of my paper, and then I'm putting a little dot here. And from this dot, I'm going to go down and I'm going to draw with the brush. So the best way to draw with the brush is holding your brush straight up, and I'm going to draw a circle. And start small, and then you can slowly get bigger. So I'm going to add the paint. And notice when I dip into my paint, I only dip in the tip of my brush. This whole thing is not into my paint, and I call it just a little kiss of paint. Gently go in, just like a gentle kiss on someone's cheek. You gently go into the paint. And I'm making a small circle first. If I want to make my bird a little bit bigger, I can. I'm letting the hairs drag behind, and I'm trying to get a nice rounded shape here, letting the hairs drag behind. So take your time and do a nice neat circle. And then, of course, pat it out smooth. Now, the next part we're going to do is we're going to make the letter U. And if I look at the top of my page and I find the bottom of my page, the very center is where I'm going to put a dot, and that's where I want my U to end. That way I have plenty of room for these great, cool, long legs with some fun pattern on top. So I'm going to come down, around, and back up. And I'm letting the hairs drag behind, so it's nice and smooth painting. And then I smooth out all streaks, lines, or puddles. Now, if you want your bird to be a little bit rounder, you can give him a rounder tummy at this time, right here. If you want to make him a little bit fatter, that's up to you on the shape of your bird. But just so that we have a head section and then this U-shaped body at the bottom. There. And if you make a mistake, you just paint it a little bit bigger. All right, so once we have our head and body, it's really very easy. Then I find where my head meets the body, and I go just a little bit below that, and I'm making a wing. So I'm going to come out straight. I'm going to go straight with my brush, and my brush has a little bit of brown on it. Come out straight, and I'm going to go up toward the corner. See what I did? I came out and I drew up straight toward that corner. Bring it back, and now I'm going to get it a little bit thicker here, just a little bit thicker, not much, and I'm going to taper it here. This is the bird's wings. He's about to take off, or he's spreading out his wings, and we're going to do the same on the other side. Come out just below the head, and I'm going to draw right up to the corner, right to that corner, and then come back down. And when I come back down, I'm going a little bit thicker. Look, it's almost another brush stroke, thicker. Blend that in. And now I'm going to go into another value of blue. And value is the lightness or darkness of a color. So if I have blue, I can go into a dark blue or even a lighter value blue. So I want to find a different color value blue. I don't want the same value. And I'm going to choose a darker shade of blue here. So let me show you the two differences. These are both blue paint, but one is a light value, one is a dark value. And so I'm just going to go a little bit into that dark blue value, and I'm going to press, and pull down. And I'm using the side, I'm pressing and pull down straight. And I'm just adding this other dark value for the feathers. And I'm pressing, pulling, pressing, pulling. So press, flick, kind of flick, press, pull off, and notice I go beyond this. This just shows some of the wing feathers, which are longer feathers. So I'm trying to create something. I'm going to turn my paper here. Press, pull, press, pull. And I can just kind of press these right here now, just by pressing, press, press, press. I take the brush, push down, lift up. Take the brush, push down, lift up. So I'm just kind of printing the tip of my brush. These are the smaller feathers. Let me put a few little tiny dots here at the tips, because it slowly gets smaller. There. So I've printed some of those feathers. If you want to continue to print some feathers on the tummy area, you can, just by pressing your brush, pulling up. And I'm just leaving this, I'm not putting much paint on here, I just want these to be very light in value. And I'm not going to put design on my head right now. I'm going to wait for that, keep it blank so I can do my eyes, nose, and mouth, nose and beak on there. But that's how you can print your feathers. Now the next brush I'm going to do is I'm going to switch out to a skinnier brush to do the legs. And I want to come down with 2 straight lines for the legs. And I'm just going to go into this, actually I can make some yellow-orange color here for the legs. I'm going to dip a little bit into red and then dip into a little bit of yellow-orange. And I'm going to now I want 2 skinny straight lines going right down. So to get my lines as skinny as I can, I use my small round brush, and I'm resting my hand on the table. And I'm putting my fingers right next to the metal of the brush so I can draw. And I'm going to drag my hand down, and I'm barely touching the paper. And I'm going to drag my hand straight down to get real skinny lines. So I'm going to try and get as skinny a lines as I can. And then if you want to put some little toes sticking out here, you can. And that's how I'm going to do the little legs. Now, if you want to make them a little bit thicker as they reach the body, you can. So they're tapered. They go from thick to thin. So I'm making it a little bit thicker here. Just being careful. Now again, it's so important to rest your wrist on that table so you can taper your lines thick to thin. And now I'm going to find the center of our head for the beak. And I'm going to dab a little bit of paint here. And then I'm going to use the brush, turning it flat. It's almost parallel to my paper. It's not straight up like a soldier. And I'm going to press down and let the brush print my little beak. And then I'm going to go sideways, and you can even use the tip of your brush to move that paint. I want a pointier beak, so I'm going to wipe off some of my paint, and I'm just going to press a little bit of a point here. So basically, if you take your time doing the smaller details like the beak and just press carefully, I'm going to add a little bit more paint because I'm moving around that paint too much. If you press carefully and take your time, you're going to get a nice thin line. Just be real careful when you do small items, as opposed to taking your brush. Here's being very careful, taking your time, as opposed to pressing and doing it fast. If I press it and do it fast, I'm going to end up with a bigger beak, and it's going to be a little bit messier. We want to try and keep our craftsmanship nice and neat. Okay, from here, I'm going to change, and I'm going to put a color in the eye. I'm just going to use this green, and I'm going to do above this, I'm going to put 2 dots where I want my eyes to be, and then I'm going to make them a little bit bigger, just expanding those eyes. And I'll expand this circle. And then I'm going to let this dry before I put a little black dot in the center. Choose a eye color that's going to work better, that's going to work well with your background color so that it shows up. You want a lot of contrast. You see how much contrast mine is? Those eyes really show up well. If you put similar color, they're not going to show up. And the eyes are the most important part, so you want to really emphasize those eyes. And again, you're going to be putting a black dot in the center. Now you can go ahead and decorate your background. And if you want to add some grass to the bottom, you can put trees in the background. Where is this bird standing? Is this bird standing on a branch high up in the trees? If you want to add any other little details to the bird, you can. You might want to put some little dark feathers on the top. Just kind of touch the head and flick your little brush out. If you want to add little tiny feathers in here for texture, you can add some little patterns on his legs if you'd like. But whenever you create a pattern like this, you want to follow through with what's called unity. And so it continues throughout all the parts of his legs. So if I were to do polka dots on this side and stripes on this side, this would not show unity. And I'm barely dipping in my brush here to get tiny, tiny stripes. I'm just going to go very quickly here. If you want to go ahead and add your grasses, grass grows up. So I start from the bottom of the page and flick up. Start from the bottom and flick up. And I always add different values in my grass. Light greens and dark greens and yellow greens. Start at the bottom, flick up, and flick in different directions. And just a very quick way of finishing it off, and you would finish, is if you want to put a little bit of flowers in, you could show dots of flowers, which is always fun, and dots of tall flowers. Here's a tall flower. These are actually flowers on a stem, like a lupin. Dot, 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 dot. So it's a long stick flower. Those are different kinds of flowers. And then, of course, their leaves, they have more long strokes coming out, but that's a way of adding to your background. So it's up to you. And don't forget your little black dot in the middle. That's not black, though. I don't have black with me right here. And let me show you some examples of how the kids finish theirs off. Remember, you finish it off the way you want to make it your own art. And this is first grade. So this is my first grade students right here. And they are 6 years old. This is the beginning of the school year, so they haven't turned their 7 yet. This one is the mother bird with the babies, and then you've got some of these taller flowers here. And this student chose to do some nice, adding other colors and textures for their feathers. A lot of little flowers in the background and some nice texture on his legs. And this student has a lot of eggs in a nest here. And here's some great wildflowers in the background here growing. That's got a cute expression on its face. And here is a very lucky bird mother with lots of little birds all around. And here's an interesting giant nest the bird is in. So it almost looks like a baby bird, like a baby water bird with nice long legs. So this is the water birds when they have their long, long legs. So I hope you enjoyed my lesson on birds.